Hello, thanks for being in a new video. This time I have a full review of the Galaxy A05s. Let's get started. This is one of Samsung's most affordable devices. Still below it there is the Galaxy A05. But honestly, it seems to me that despite being very economical, it has several features that can be very attractive, especially considering its competitors in the same price range. In Mexico, its launch price has been 3,299 pesos. That is approximately Dormendo icons that won golds, although remember that the prices here are not the same as those there. Generally, Mexico prices are higher, but within the Mexican market, it seems to me that this price is quite competitive considering that it is a Galaxy, and behind it will have all the strength of Samsung with all the pros and cons that carries. Throughout the video, I will be telling you several outstanding features of it, but for now, what should also be noted is that being a Galaxy, it has a good distribution. That is, you can find it in phone companies, in online stores, in physical stores, and that is a point that in itself is strong. In addition to compatibility with cases, for example, which is something that devices from lesser-known brands can't boast. So join me to know what it can offer us compared to its competitors. On the front design, there are no surprises, as Samsung has accustomed us to designs of this style with fairly thick bezels. In fact, compared to other devices in this same price range, it is possibly the device with the least attractive design, because it looks like an old device integrating drop notch and, as I tell you, considerably thick bezels. In addition, it will not have any special Gorilla Glass protection on the screen, so it also feels very plain in that aspect. On the right side, we will find fingerprint reader inside the on-off button. In addition, the volume buttons, all this in a plastic frame with metallic look. At the top is only a microphone, while on the left is the tray where you can place 2 SIM cards and a microSD card. Although if you buy it with a phone company, possibly the second nano SIM tray comes locked. On the bottom, it has a headphone jack, a microphone, USB-C port, and the main speaker. This device has a thickness of is not too heavy. In fact, it has a weight of some attractive point, as in this price range we could find some heavy devices. Although it is becoming less and less common, then I think it has a nice design. And the back cover will remind again all Galaxy with a very minimalist design, a cover with a solid color, although in this case it reflects nicely the lighting and fingerprints do not get to stay marked easily, so that point could be positive. In this case, I have the silver edition, but it is also available in black, light purple, and light green. Finally, it is not a device that has any level of water resistance, so you have to be very careful, but we could not ask for any special protection in that sense at this price. The screen will offer a good display as long as we have the device facing us, because if we turn the device slightly, we notice how it loses a lot of brightness and obviously the colors become very distorted. So it is a screen completely focused on personal use. If you are one of those who like to share content with your friends, believe me that those who are watching from the side will not have the same experience and will probably even complain because they will not get to see anything at all. This is because it's a PLS LCD screen. It is not an AMOLED screen, so it is not going to offer very good viewing angles. Although I insist that if you see the content from the front, it will offer good color and acceptable contrast. Overall, it is not a spectacular screen, but at this price we could not get so demanding. But something positive about this screen is the resolution, which is Full HD Plus with some of the highest, 2340 by 1080 pixels. So it gives a density of 384, so you do get to have a good level of detail. Samsung does not offer information about the brightness of this screen, but it can be quite high for good outdoor viewing. Although I insist that the content must be viewed from the front, because from the side it will lose a lot of brightness. And with respect to the lowest brightness, it doesn't get low enough for comfortable use at night. Although fortunately within the accessibility options there is an option called Extra Dimmed, where you can lower the brightness of the screen even more and use it comfortably at night. So it may become necessary to activate this option within the accessibility options. Another positive point of the screen is that it offers us 90 Hz in its refresh rate. So yes, it is capable of giving you fluid movements when you are browsing lists. Although I cannot say the same thing about navigating the system, since in reality the performance that has this device is simple and can be complicated to move the Samsung system. but at least in lists it can get to give you this fluid feeling. It also includes eye protection mode with a filter, although it cannot be applied with as much intensity as in higher quality screens. In fact, as you can notice, it does not have several color calibrations as we could also find in more advanced screens. So we conclude that it is a simple screen, but for personal use it could pass as acceptable. This device has only one speaker at the bottom, which fortunately has a good enough quality. That is to say, it doesn't get to have mid-frequencies that stand out above the rest and come to hurt. Instead, it has a slight presence of bass frequencies with a sufficiently balanced sound. Let's listen to a small test, although it is not the same to listen to it live. It is a speaker that offers good quality, although the volume is not too high. If your priority is volume, you can surely find devices that sound much louder, although they will sound with less quality. And in software, unlike other Galaxy devices, it will only offer Dolby Atmos when we have headphones connected and does not offer access to an equalizer, so the sound experience is cut down, which was one of the advantages generally offered by all Galaxy devices. Fortunately, the feature it does retain is the standalone app sound feature, which can come in handy at some parties as it allows you to send sound from certain apps to your Bluetooth speakers. For example, you could send Spotify or any other music player to your speaker, and it allows you to keep the sound of other apps on your cell phone, for example WhatsApp, or if you're going to watch videos while you're at a party, you can perfectly make the device send two different audio signals. And as I had already told you, it does retain the headphone jack, which can be quite useful. And in wireless audio, in addition to the basic codecs, it also supports aptX to have a little more definition. Although curiously in this case does not support Samsung's SSC codec, so even connecting a Galaxy Buds you could not enjoy an audio of too much quality, although obviously being an inexpensive device we can forgive it in that aspect. Below you will hear an audio test recorded using these microphones.
Esta grabación de audio ha sido realizada con los micrófonos integrados del Galaxy A05s.
When recording voices with this microphone, it will have a certain level of noise cancellation which makes it lose a bit of audio fidelity, so it is not so recommended for formal use. Just to save some voice memos is fine. But next we will see a video recorded with this device. But we will focus on how the microphones pick up the audio in an environment with very loud volume, setting my home sound system at maximum volume. And as you can notice, the device generates a lot of distortions in addition to the noise cancellation that is still present and spoils a lot the result. So this device is not recommended at all if you want to record concerts. The front camera is 13 megapixel with f2.0 aperture and fixed focus. Like every Galaxy, it has a quick release gesture by double pressing the power button. So it can come in handy because it's not only available when the device is locked, but even if you're in any other app and you suddenly want to take a quick picture, you can double press this button and you can do that same gesture if you want to rotate to the front camera. So it can give you a snappy experience. That's with respect to the camera aperture. But with respect to capturing the pictures, the experience is not snappy at all as it doesn't allow constant or fast captures, so you have to be patient with it in this aspect. The device integrates two modes of amplitude, and if you press the button in the upper right corner, you can access the filters of different colors that you can preview simultaneously, or also the facial beauty options that come turned off by default, but you can turn them on with 4 different parameters, and with all the parameters at maximum, you can definitely look very fake. And another highlight that probably other devices than Galaxy don't offer you is the palm capture gesture. Note that it is very easy and works very well. In fact, you could also enable the floating shutter button so that you can place it in the area that is easiest for you when holding your device for a more comfortable capture of photos. Another positive aspect of the experience is that if you hold down the button, you can start a video recording, and when you release the button, the recording will stop, or you can swipe up if you want to continue your recording without the need to keep your finger on the button. And if you want to do a burst, you can slide down the shutter, and note that it is a considerably good burst, which compensates a little bit for the little agility it has with the constant touches on the shutter. In this case, the photographs from the front camera seem to me to give a good enough level of detail, although not as good as represented by its resolution. That is, it is a 13 megapixel photograph, but in reality, I consider that it would give a level of detail similar to 8 megapixels. Fortunately, they are photographs that have good contrast, and even the colors are not too bad, especially considering the price of this device. I think the selfies are going to be of good quality. He even notes that in backlit conditions, even though in the preview it looks very burnt and overexposed, the end result looks well balanced in highlights and shadows, and again, for this price, I think it's pretty good. Indoors, I find the color very good and the contrast very good, although the level of detail is obviously greatly diminished. So it's not a very detailed photo, but if you don't get close enough to notice the details, I think the result can pass as a positive. And at night, if you have a close light source, the result is going to be very similar to the indoor photo. That is, it has good contrast, there's virtually no noise present even in the darkest areas, but it's not going to have as much detail as we'd like. But obviously in a device of this price, we can't get so demanding. In night backlighting, which would be the most complicated scenario, it's obviously not going to be able to give a good result. But note that if you use the screen as a flash simulation, it could still have an acceptable result. Consider that this is the most complicated environment that we only demand a good result from high-end devices. But if from the range of decent, I think it's okay. And although it lets you use the night mode with the front camera, in this scenario it definitely does not get to have a good result. But with good lighting, even night portraits come out good enough, although the noise causes the feeling of depth to be not so real. But in the daytime, portraits can look a bit higher quality, although it obviously doesn't have 100% perfect edge detection, especially in the hair area, which can be difficult. But we would only demand that from more expensive devices. Something also to note is that it is not able to detect foreground in terms of objects. So it's not as professional a portrait, but if you don't have objects, I think you can still get good results. Especially considering that it does not burn the background, unlike other devices that in this same type of conditions got to have a worse result. On the back, we have the 26mm main camera with 50 megapixels on its sensor plus f1.8 aperture and autofocus, although it does not have optical stabilization. Above it will be the 2 megapixel macro camera with f2.4 aperture, which is definitely not very nice. And below that, the depth camera, which is also not very useful. So overall, I think you consider the device to have only one camera, although it has 3 to make it look a little bit more advanced. So it has an advanced look, but the cameras are actually simple. Next, I'm going to do a test by trying to capture the number 3 that's appearing on the rear device. I'm going to do a second attempt to make sure I've got a good capture, and finally I'm going to try to capture when I see it through the cell phone screen, because as you realize, it has quite a bit of latency in this regard. And the results, I think, are clear. It is a device that takes almost half a second after you press the shutter to take the picture. So it would not be so recommended if you are one of those who want to capture the exact moment. If we slide down the shutter, we can start a burst, in this case of up to 30 pictures. It doesn't have that much speed in between, but I think it helps. I also like that it doesn't take so long to activate. So I think that in this burst you might be able to extract some pictures that you find useful for the exact moment. Believe me, in this price range the burst devices will be much worse, so this one may stand out as a strong point. Again, with the on-screen button we can access the color filters, which we can preview in real time, and also the facial beauty effects, which in this case also repeat the 3 parameters. If you tap on the screen, you can adjust the focus and exposure, but you can also access a professional mode where we have manual parameters. For example, the ISO can go up to 800, which is a bit short, but in the shutter speed we can go up to 30 seconds. So we have good manual settings. However, obviously it will not let us take raw photography, but we can move the focus, white balance, and even change the type of measurement. Although, unlike other Galaxies, it doesn't give us access to set things like contrast, tint, highlights, or shadows. And note that the setup supposedly does bring QR code and document detection enabled, but in practice it seems to have quite a bit of trouble detecting these kinds of things. Although after a little time and patience it does detect their content. And for the documents again, it is necessary to have a little patience so that it can detect them, and above all, it can cut them automatically. Although in this case it seems to have a problem and difficulties because it fails to finish the picture. With the high resolution mode, the device takes pictures of 50 megapixels, and it seems to me that the sensor is more or less used. Obviously, there will be devices capable of using the sensor with even better capabilities to take even more detailed pictures, but I sincerely believe that for the price, it is not bad at all to have this level of detail. Outdoors, the photos are going to have a good quality within the acceptable. The colors do not have such a high level of accuracy, but I think they turn out as something positive as well. The device does not integrate an ultra-wide camera, so the issue of width will be important. The main camera I think has a good quality. Chromatic aberration is not so easily seen, but obviously if you want a wider capture, you can use the panoramic mode, although honestly it is not high resolution, so it does not result as a very spectacular picture in terms of detail. In fact, the colors also look pretty weird in panorama mode, so it's not very good. However, it takes good pictures even in motion, so it doesn't look like a bad camera to me, but only from the main mode. Indoors, note how the result is positive. I think it keeps this feeling of a slightly darker scene, but there is not much noise present. It still maintains a good level of detail, although colors lose quite a bit of accuracy. And at night, it's definitely going to suffer a lot. Notice how in auto mode it tries to balance the brighter area well, but the darker area becomes a mess with too much noise. With night mode, the photo is much cleaner, avoiding a lot of noise that was present, and still maintains a good enough balance of the brighter area. So it is highly recommended to use night mode. In the darker areas, I think the camera performs well enough from the automatic mode. And with the night mode, it tries to increase the illumination a bit, but honestly, I don't find the result very attractive. Probably because it does not have optical stabilization, so in a long exposure is quite complicated to have a good detail. And for macro photography, the main camera will definitely be ideal. Look at the quality of photography it is able to give us with very vibrant and very good colors. In fact, if you apply zoom in this photograph, you will also have an attractive and very good result. On the other hand, if you use the macro camera, it doesn't have such disastrous colors as in other occasions, but I think it is not able to give us a higher level of detail than the main camera with digital zoom. So I definitely prefer the result with the main camera. That's why I don't find the macro camera attractive. Backlit, obviously the preview doesn't look very well optimized, but it does indicate that it will use HDR. So after taking the picture, notice how it does a good balance of highlights and shadows. Simply that moving objects might come out with a ghosting effect, but in reality the photograph is going to be good. Talking specifically about the balance of light and shadow considering the price. And lastly, the portrait photography doesn't seem to be very good. Notice how in this case it had a hiccup. It looks like it misapplied the depth detection because this area seems to be in focus with the same shape as my hand, but it's on the top. So fortunately this could be fixed through a software update. Hopefully they will send it because the detection in the rest of the world is not so accurate. It has a nice blur. The light balance is also positive and it does keep the foreground objects in focus. So it could just be a small software bug in this scenario, but with an update it should be fixed for good performance. For video recording, it includes support for full HD videos. So it's fine. At this price, I think we cannot demand much more. Curiously again appears the button in the upper right corner, with which we can load some color filters and even modify its intensity. So it is interesting in this sense, especially because it maintains the full HD quality, unlike other devices that when you select a color filter, they lower the quality to HD. And when you start a video recording, note that you can pause and resume your recording. You can also take pictures while you are recording. It also includes a zoom slider, which can be useful because it also includes quick shortcuts in at least 2 zoom positions. But what I like the most is that it also lets you rotate to the front camera without the need to stop your recording, and that's something that, believe me, Few devices allow, even very expensive devices don't include a button like this, so it can get to stand out. It also includes a button to turn on the flashlight without the need to cut your video, so the video recording experience can come in handy in that aspect. Video recording is simple mostly because having no optical stabilization and no digital stabilization, even in the simplest of movements, it feels a very strange result. You must keep the device very stable if you want to have a good result, plus the colors are obviously not so accurate, but we are talking about an entry-level device. By not having multiple cameras, the zoom is quite limited, so it has a very low range. But also by not having stabilization, if you zoom too much, the movement that is generated and also does not have good detail, then it is very simple video recording. Indoors, we are going to notice very low level of detail, very little saturation in colors, and a lot of noise presence. So definitely that it is a camera that is confirmed to be quite simple. It will not be advisable to record in poorly lit environments. In backlighting is also what is expected of a device of this price. That is, it gives preference to illuminate the face, sacrificing the background areas that can get to overexpose or burn, so it will also be advisable to record with the light from the front and not behind. And at night it can also have problems. The color does not seem to be very accurate. It gives a cold tone in this environment where there was warm light. It obviously fails to balance well the light sources present in these videos, and in darker areas it does not recover much illumination, so it is confirmed that you need to be in a well-lit environment to have good results. As I already told you, it has no optical or digital stabilization, so when walking you will feel the movements and vibrations very strong, and when running you will obviously notice them even more. The device integrates a fast camera recording mode in Full HD, but without stabilization the result can be spoiled, plus it goes to a low bit rate, so you do not feel a very high level of detail. And finally, the slow motion is in HD at one of the lowest on the list, so the result is simple, but it is remarkable that you can enjoy slow motion from this price point. The front camera also has no stabilization, so it can be very annoying in that sense. Plus, it doesn't have a good dynamic range, so to light up the face, it's going to sacrifice the back areas, getting to burn or overexpose them too much. Then the video quality again is very simple. Indoors, it seems that fortunately still has a sufficiently high detail, albeit with a strong presence of noise. Especially noticeable on my t-shirt and in darker areas, but it still maintains sufficiently high color saturation. And obviously at night will be the most difficult environment where more noise will appear, especially in darker areas. You will also notice a bit aggressive jumps in the exposure. Then it is confirmed in general, this is not a device that is going to meet the needs of anyone who wants to record high quality videos. In fact, if you go to darker areas, more noise appears, and this device is not able to light up its screen more brightly to illuminate your face while recording video. This front camera is integrated fast camera mode, but without stabilization. While in the front camera does not have slow motion and does not have a dual recording mode, so you can show the front and rear camera at the same time. In the software section, the device comes with Android 14 and One UI 6. However, note that Samsung has a good update policy, and at this price point, almost no manufacturer is going to offer you anything certain. So Samsung is offering 2 years of software updates with 4 years of quarterly security patches for this device. As you can see right now, it is already receiving one of those security patches, so you can have more confidence in buying a device that has this clear policy so it won't be outdated or have security risks. In addition, it is common knowledge that Samsung software integrates many attractive features. For example, in this case, it does include the modes and routines function with which you can automate your device. You can synchronize various features so that everything is changed automatically. And within the routines, you can also explore some that have been previously created for you to automate various things on your phone. In my case, I would do a routine with a schedule condition. Although you can activate with different conditions these routines depending on the state of your phone, depending on messages you receive. Even if a call comes in, you can trigger many conditions in your phone to change the settings. So in my case, I am going to select that during a period of time, specifically from sunset to sunrise the next day. Every day of the week, the device will enable the accessibility option and activate the extra dimming option that I showed you when I talked about brightness with a maximum intensity, so it can help me to lower the brightness automatically without me as a user having to access the accessibility settings and more things. In the same way, I have created other routines on other cell phones to enable rotation when I enter the gallery and disable it when I exit the gallery, and other additional options. So routines can really help you automate all kinds of things on your phone. Inside the notifications, we are also going to find a different style unlike other devices, because in this case, the notification can be customized to have an effect of hearts or some other things. In fact, you can customize the color and also its transparency so that you can enjoy a better experience when receiving this type of notifications. For customization, you can access the themes section, and note that you can install quite complex themes that include customization for your lock screen, although the customization of the lock screen is not as advanced as on other cell phones, but you can change the background, screen icons and other things. Not having AMOLED screen does not have the always on display feature, but it does include widgets for the lock screen that you can display by pressing once on the clock, and you could access a music player, voice recorder and other things. As within the settings, if it allows you to reorder and turn off or turn on the widgets you want. In this device, Samsung does not integrate Bixby as a voice assistant, so you depend entirely on Google. However, the Labs section is integrated, where you can force multi-window to be available for all apps and also force some apps to open in dark mode. But for apps in pop-up windows, we don't have the Edge panel feature to open them quickly from this side window. So what we have to do is open the app, and then from the recent apps list, you can transform it into a pop-up window that you can resize, although with a bit of work, and you can also reposition it. Obviously, remember that Samsung makes all apps compatible with this mode, so you could open several apps in this pop-up format. However, the fact that it doesn't have the Edge panel display makes it a bit more complicated to open these apps, unlike other Galaxy. But remember that it also has two important gestures to facilitate the use of these modes. For example, if you slide 2 fingers from the bottom up, we will be able to open the split screen mode. And if we have some other application running and we want to transform it into a pop-up screen, we can simply slide from one of the corners and watch how the application will automatically transform. So these gestures make life easier. And speaking of gestures, you also have some simple ones to turn the screen on or off. And regarding the one-handed mode, fortunately, it's going to work well because it not only shrinks the screen on the vertical axis but also on the horizontal axis. So it's still quite comfortable to reach all areas of the screen. And it also has dual messenger, so you can have 2 applications with different accounts in case you need it, even with separate contact lists. Within the gallery, you can press the create button to make a GIF or collage without having to download other applications. Although note that in this case, it does not include the magic eraser that we could easily see in other Galaxy devices, nor does it include the option to press and hold to automatically cut out people or objects. Then it comes a little simpler but brings several Galaxy functions, especially Samsung members, where we will be able to find discounts. So if you like to take advantage of discount coupons in clothing stores, food stores, on vacation and many more things, you can take advantage of this section where Samsung offers good promotions for its Galaxy users. So the system can become most attractive, especially at this price, because most competitors will have very simple systems with very few options. But Samsung, despite having a trimmed system in this device, still offers very good options. Obviously, the optical engine will be on the Z-axis, so vibration will be simple on this device. Let's go straight to talking about security, and for that I mentioned that it comes with a side fingerprint reader that supports up to 3 records, so it is very limited in that aspect. Fortunately, it unlocks fast, but if you are one of those people who usually register a lot of trusted people, or you like to register several fingers, here you are much more limited compared to the other competing devices that let you register 5 fingerprints. But the unlock works well even though it doesn't have any gestures to take advantage of its position. It also has 2-dimensional facial recognition, so it's not so recommended if you want to gain a lot of security, but if you want convenience there, you can have it. But you know that to have more comfort, it is best to enable Google Extend Unlock, which is available within the lock screen options. With this option, you can select some trusted places or devices so that the device is not constantly locked, but you can keep it unlocked. Unfortunately, in this case, it doesn't include Samsung Pass. So for autofilling passwords, you're going to rely on Google, and you know it doesn't work as it should. Sometimes it doesn't fill in both fields and doesn't first verify through your fingerprint before filling in, so you have to be careful with that. It also doesn't integrate the secure folder that's available on other Galaxies, nor does it integrate the secure Wi-Fi option with which you have a private VPN from Samsung. So there are several options that Samsung has removed from this device, but it keeps the option to encrypt the memory card, and interestingly, it also keeps Samsung Kids, which is a completely secure environment where you authorize which apps your child can use. Obviously, to get out of this mode, you must verify through your fingerprint, so it's pretty good for a kind of parental control. Samsung also includes an antivirus in collaboration with McAfee that is disabled at the factory, but you can enable it, so it can also be useful. And if you happen to lose your phone, within the security options, you have the option to find your lost device, in this case with the Samsung network. So you have two ways to try to find your phone: the Google network and the Samsung network, so you have a better chance of finding it. You also have the digital wellness options where you can see the consumption of apps that you have and even set yourself timers or limits, and also set up your children's devices with parental control limits. Finally, in the emergency options, you know you can fill in your emergency contact information or medical data, and you can also press the on-off button 5 times to make an emergency call. The battery is 5000 mAh, although it performed a little below expectations. It is not disappointing, but it is not going to be an amazing battery. Fortunately, it has a power saving mode, so you can extend the time much longer, as in my tests it gave about 4 hours with 30 minutes with an application that consumed a lot of processes. So obviously it doesn't mean that your device is going to run for 4 hours and 30 minutes, but if you put a lot of heavy work on it, it could give you more or less that duration. Fortunately, it also includes a much more extreme power saving mode for emergency occasions, where it lets you add 4 applications that you consider essential for your day-to-day, but that mode is more focused on emergencies. The 25-watt charger is sold separately, and that is a point that definitely comes to annoy a lot. And even acquiring the original charger charging is not very fast if you like to wait for the full charge. Although the first 30 minutes of charging is quite fast. In my test with 15 minutes of charging, it recovered 26% of energy. With 30 minutes, it recovered 46%, so it was going pretty well. But the charging then starts to get very slow, so it finished at 100% in 3 hours. So it confirms to us that it has a pretty slow charge. Fortunately, with the next update to One UI 6.1 should have more battery care options, as at the moment it only includes the 85% lock, which can be useful for those who need to always have their cell phone plugged in. If you have this option enabled, the battery will not suffer so much degradation, but it still does not have smart charging, but with an update it could receive it soon. This device includes support for 4G networks only, so it does not yet integrate 5G or even more advanced eSIM features. Fortunately, you can control which applications access the internet with your mobile data and which applications can only do so over Wi-Fi, so you can get a good control of your mobile data consumption. In this case, it supports Wi-Fi networks in its version 5, so it does not offer us such a spectacular download speed, but it is within the acceptable. In Bluetooth, we have 5.1, again being something not very modern but acceptable, and does not have NFC to make mobile payments directly with the cell phone, but again is within acceptable in this price range. Fortunately, it does integrate FM radio, but you need to have headphones connected to work as an antenna. And please note that it does not bring Smart View to project your screen wirelessly. So there is no way to make a screen projection either by cable or wirelessly, although you can connect to Android Auto in both ways. And as you can realize in the sensors, it also comes very trimmed, since as you realize it includes accelerometer, but it does not have geomagnetic field sensor, it does not have gyroscope or many other sensors. So it comes a simple experience. As for the proximity sensor, note that it is a sensor that is going to respond very well, completely physical and fully functional. The Samsung ecosystem is always one of the highlights, although in this case it comes with a little more limited connectivity. Yes, brings quick share to share files between multiple Galaxy devices and other Android devices, also supports answering calls and messages from your Galaxy tab. Then it can be useful but does not bring perfectly well integrated connectivity with Galaxy Buds or Galaxy Watch, although it is compatible with the Galaxy wearable application for you to configure these accessories. However, compatibility can be a little limited because it has a lower performance in this case, but definitely, yes, you can get to enjoy these Samsung accessories to complement your experience. Then the ecosystem can become good. Does not come with integrated connectivity features to Windows, so you need to install all that separately. If you are going to connect to a computer, could become a little more complex. But remember that the Samsung ecosystem is an open ecosystem. So through the Smart Things application, you will be able to control devices in your home and even other brands. As remember that in this section, you can review all the compatibility that Samsung integrates, and believe me, the SmartThings ecosystem is one of the most complete in terms of compatibility. So you can enjoy many connected accessories in your home and all control them directly from the same application. The Samsung ecosystem is always a strong point, and with regards to cloud storage, in addition to everything Google offers you also, in this case Samsung offers a collaboration with OneDrive, so the gallery is fully integrated with OneDrive, although it doesn't offer you any additional storage capacity other than the 5 gigabytes that OneDrive itself offers. It would be great if Samsung would let you select who your cloud photo backup service provider is directly from your native gallery, but that is not yet available. Finally, let's talk about performance. In this case, integrates the Snapdragon processor 680, which is a processor that we have seen integrated into devices that cost easily twice or more than what this cell phone costs. Then it is definitely good news to see it in this price segment, although it comes with 4 gigabytes of RAM, and in Galaxy devices, RAM is vital. And believe me that those 4 gigabytes of RAM are very short. We will check in a moment. As you can see, the device took more than 7 seconds on average to open each application, and that I only opened 10 applications, unlike other tests I do. And note that the RAM memory is completely insufficient to keep open these applications. Notes that there are constant reboots. Then definitely, despite having 4 gigabytes of RAM, the device took more than 7 seconds on average to open each application, and that I only opened 10 applications, unlike other tests I do. And note that the RAM memory is completely insufficient to keep open these applications. Notes that there are constant reboots. Then definitely, despite have 4 gigabytes of virtual RAM, will not give us a good performance, is not going to be recommended this device. If you are a user who likes to have open many applications and be switching between them because it notes how slow it is, this device to react really will not give us a good experience. Notes how you can get to stay pretty frozen when you are exchanging between heavy applications. Even when you're scrolling on social networks to load new content, could get a little slow if there are many videos. Although if you have few applications open, will behave well. All depends on how many applications you have open. In this case, let me close all applications to see how you can get much more agile in these environments. Note how with a single application running, definitely the device goes much more fluid if we leave and re-enter it still. There are system animations that can get a little slow, but it's all due to the RAM, as the processor is pretty good for this price, but the RAM falls very short in Samsung. The minimum I ask for a still acceptable performance are 6 gigabytes, but the minimum if you want to have a very good performance are 8 gigabytes. Then here it falls quite short. Fortunately has 128 gigabytes of storage, so you have good space. And if you consider the micro SD up to a terabyte, I think it will also complement very well, so you can save enough photos and enough videos. And since we are talking about videos, let me put this device to the test by exporting a video up to a terabyte. I think it will also complement very well, so you can save enough photos and enough videos. Consider the micro SD of up to 1 terabyte. I think it will also complement very well, so you can save quite a few photos and quite a few videos. And since we are talking about videos, let me test this device by exporting a video with a total minute of duration with several videos recorded in full HD with this device. As you see, it took 38 seconds, showing a considerably good power for this price range. So you could export videos nicely, but just have the video editor open, because if you have other things open, it can get a lot slower. Let's talk now about the games, as it does have the gaming hub, where you can collect your games and you can even run content that does not need to be downloaded, so it does not use internal storage of your device. And you have much more space, but for gamers who like to install the heaviest games, we will have a little strange experience, because despite having the gaming hub, does not really have the game booster tools. Then when you open a game, watch how the game booster button does not appear, so you have no additional tools. In this sense, it is confirmed that it is a simple gaming experience. In Call of Duty, it loads a low graphic quality at a medium frame rate, And definitely there are many effects that are not available, plus it is not able to record your screen. So it is another limitation if you like to record gameplays or something like that. And in fact, it is very curious to note that this device, despite having the Snapdragon processor 680, cannot reach 40 frames per second in low graphic quality as if we see it in other devices with the same processor. So it seems that due to limitations of RAM, this device can give you a performance in gaming a little worse than we expected. Not that it goes completely wrong, but the processor gave us expectations a little higher, and in this case does not get to climb 30 frames per second, and its average of 26 confirms that it is a regular performance. Fortunately did not get too hot, reaching 40.3 degrees Celsius in the game of Legends. We changed the graphic detail in automatic for a low graphic detail at 60 frames per second. And the result with this game I think was positive, because if it was able to reach 60 frames per second in some moments, obviously does not have too much stability, but believe me, for the price the performance is pretty decent, obviously adjusting the low graphic quality, because if you want to go higher it will not be possible, but I think you have to be honest with this device, and with a graphic quality according to its price we will have a good performance. In the case of SpongeBob, we selected the resolution and low quality but at 60 frames per second. And it should be noted that if the smoothing is available, however, I think it would be advisable to disable the smoothing, because with the smoothing enabled, believe me, it will not give you a good performance. The stability experience was very bad. There were several fluctuations in the frames per second, so I insist the appropriate thing would be to disable the smoothing effect, as in this case came down to 15 frames per second, which already gives an experience a little cut at the time to be playing. And finally we played Asphalt 9. In this case, if we select the 60 frames per second that appear available and the graphic quality, we kept it in default on this occasion. We did not play Genshin Impact because it was something too demanding for a device of this price. So with this game, we confirm that content that are well adapted and optimized can get to have a good performance, reached 60 frames per second at times, although its temperature rose to 43.6 degrees Celsius in this game. So it is clear that if you run much heavier, content can get to heat up even more. In summary, it is a Galaxy that has several points in its favor for being a Galaxy ecosystem, and software experience will be what most will draw attention, in addition to the good optimization of its main camera. In the price range is possibly the device that best pictures obviously takes within the new devices, because you also have to consider that there is the possibility of buying used devices, and that could also get to have a good experience in this price range. What strikes me most is that Samsung has significantly improved its economic devices that in previous years were a complete disaster, but this year have improved significantly. For now, this has been all for this video. I hope you liked it. If so, you know you can indicate it, and we'll see you next time.